Hi, my name is Joel Brown, and today I'm going to do a brief history of bilingual education in America based off of an article written by Carlos Ovando from Arizona State University. The first period we're going to look at is the permissive period from 1700 to 1880s. This was considered our nation's period of tolerance due to the newness of our nation. Small subcultures were moving into the country and using their native tongues in order to create a sense of unity in their local schools and churches. The first half of the 19th century, these same small communities fought to keep those languages existent in the public school system. We saw a lot of German in the north, Spanish in the southwest, and a lot of French being used in the Louisiana area. This was not a form of bilingual education, but it was mainly to appease these small communities by our government. The second period is the restrictive period, from the 1880s to the 1960s. We saw language and immigration being cut and restricted. Native Americans were forced into reservations and taught English in order to civilize them. And the Naturalization Act of 1906 forced English upon all immigrants that wanted to live here. After declaring war on Germany in the First World War, all forms of public education when it came to teaching German were dropped because it was deemed un-American or possibly dangerous. The third period was the opportunist period from the 1960s to the 1980s. We know that in the 60s a lot of political change happened, starting with the Civil Rights Act. But in 1965 we saw the Immigration Act revoking the Naturalization Act, meaning that people that couldn't speak English could still move into the country. In 1968, the Bilingual Education Act was vague at the time, but it basically started the momentum for bilingual education that we have today. There were critics against this that said this was a death wish for America and it disrupts the unity that our country had worked towards for all these years that it had been in existence. In 1974, Equal Education Opportunity Act came into existence, and this was brought forth by a Supreme Court case of Lau versus Nichols, where 1,800 Chinese students in California were not able to pass classes because the classes were taught in English and they couldn't speak English. We enter into the final period, which is what we're in today, from the 1980s to current times, the dismissive period. The main thing that's happened is in California, Proposition 227 was proposed, and basically they said there that English was going to be the standard medium of all textbooks and education material. They didn't drop bilingual education programs, but it made it much more difficult, I should say, for these students to be able to learn. A lot of people adopted this, and it was unfortunate because it went back to a time of fear of the country being disunified and moving apart from each other, and people were questioning social class and cultural identity. And these are the same problems that we're having right now. We have people that are looking forward towards a mixed future and mixed education system, and then people that are traditionalists that only want English being taught in our public schools. So I hope that explains a bit about the history of bilingual education in the United States. Thank you for listening.